Kenny Cunningham is with us this morning. Kenny, how are you?
Morning, Ger. All good. Good to be back in your company.
You're going to need your earphones, otherwise you won't be able to hear Nathan.
Oh, excuse me. Apologies. Is that not a bad thing, is it?
Kenny!
Nathan, how's it going?
Now,
that's magic, Kenny.
We played the clip there into the ad break of the biggest story in British football over the weekend, according to Chris Sutton. That's what the Premier League returns, and Chris Sutton chooses to pick on poor Gary Breen because of what he said there, which seemed pretty straightforward to me. I'm trying to find the exact quote here, Nathan, if you have it right in front of you. Here we go. Chris Sutton, at Chris_Sutton73 on Twitter. Idiotic attack on the Scottish game by Gary Breen, suggesting Shane Duffy's Ireland place may be under threat because he plays in Scotland. It's been good enough for the likes of Larson, Van Dijk, etc. Your thoughts on 6:06 tonight, 6:30 to 8 p.m. Call 0808 590 693. What do you think? What do you think, Kenny?
Well, I wouldn't, obviously knowing Chris a little bit, it wouldn't be the first time maybe Chris has gone a little bit exaggerated his response somewhat and attracted a bit of attention off the back of it. But I listened to some of Gary's interview there. I didn't hear an awful lot wrong with it. I thought it was quite a reasoned argument.
Yeah.
Which Gary had made. He was actually
praising both Celtic and Shane Duffy, but the Celtic fans and the Scottish football fans think no.
What was the big? I don't understand.
His
what
point was
the huge criticism was. What Gary said.
Gary said
there were two issues. One was that Shane Duffy will return to Ireland a worse footballer because he'll have it so easy at Celtic, and the other, which was sort of the end line, was there isn't a striker in Scottish football who could play in the Premier League.
Yeah, well, I think that's a reasonably fair comment in terms of there's not saying there's bad forwards in Scotland, but at the level.
Is Hudson-Edouard not a player who could and has been strong? Hudson-Edouard not strongly been linked with
I think he'd probably be the exception. I'm not going to speak too much about the Scottish game. Just haven't seen enough of it. I'm interested in terms of the conversation about Shane. I think Gary's right in terms of the amount of time Shane's going to be spending defending in a Celtic jersey. Going to be in stark contrast to what he's experienced at Brighton over the past couple of years. But I'd flip that around somewhat and say that in a Celtic jersey, he's certainly going to have more opportunity to maybe improve's not the best word, but just kind of sharpen up his footballing skills in terms of being on the ball and his ability to maybe pass into midfield and kind of play through the lines. I think that's something that Stephen's trying to do with the Ireland team, and at Celtic he's going to have plenty of the ball in his own halfway line, plenty of opportunity to like I said, maybe improve that side of his game, which is what Stephen is asking from him in an Ireland jersey. He's going to be playing a lot more closer to the halfway line. Celtic are going to be dominating opposition teams, so he's going to have to learn to defend higher up the pitch, maybe against kind of counter attack, which kind of a lot of the times that's what Celtic do. Teams will sit deep and look to counter attack on them. So I think Shane's experienced enough now. If it was a young player developing, learning the game, and he went up there at 22, 23 to Celtic, maybe I'll be a little bit more concerned. But I think he's at an age now, he's got a vast amount of experience behind him. So I wouldn't be as concerned maybe as Gary. I understand the argument. I think it's a fair one in terms of playing against the best. He's right in what he's saying. Playing against the very best week in, week out, instinctively, it sharpens you up. Lads, it really does. I noticed it. I went from Championship football to Premier League, and straight away you're like, wow, this is a different level.
Yeah, it's
not that people are necessarily stronger and necessarily faster, but in terms of the quality of the movement, clever, intelligent players.
Power,
yeah, exactly.
Collectively, it's a much bigger challenge. There's no way you can drop your concentration levels at any point during the game.
Oh no, yeah, absolutely. And people make type of runs you don't see before. It's not kind of standard runs and kind of straight lines, like the unexpected things. And particularly the lads in the Premiership, strikers who come in from the continent. I remember the first foreign lads I played. I remember playing against Hernan Crespo.
Tony Yeboah.
No, it's only about a bit more straight lines, to be honest with you. But remember Hernan Crespo, I played against him once. He played for Chelsea, and Crespo wasn't a great athlete. He's a little bit kind of lumpy, the Argentine, good-looking lad. Yeah, but I went out to Stamford Bridge, and for the first 20 minutes, my head was spinning. He
playing centre back or right back?
It's centre back.
Right.
The quality of his run, the quality of the timing of his runs was absolutely killing me, Ger. I'll be checking my shoulder, be seeing him. He's there. I take my eyes off him. As soon as I took my eyes off him, bang, he was gone. So like within a second or a split second, by the time my eyes went back to him, he was across me and in behind. The first couple of times he did it, he just left me. Sometimes he didn't get the ball didn't arrive. But I remember looking at it thinking, wow, I've never experienced this. I'm gonna have to modify my approach here. I'm just gonna have to get better.
So what do you do?
It's just awareness, really, to be honest with you. As soon as you see it once or twice, then you're aware of it. Maybe you have to adjust your position slightly.
That's what I was going to say. So he forces you to change your position. All of a sudden, everybody around you who defines himself by their relationship with you, so the right back is changing and your centre back partner is changing as well. Going, what's going on here? Why is Kenny moving?
But that's the same. You could take that to any sport, like the higher level, the level that you go up. You know, as long as you're kind of open minded, you're quite intelligent, you can assess situations, you understand, you absorb information.
Yeah.
Generally, you better yourself. So that's an obvious thing. So Gary's using Shane Duffy as example, kind of going up to Celtic as opposed to what he's been used to in the Premiership. I think that's a pretty obvious argument. Not necessarily means as if you're talking down Scottish Premiership or the Scottish League. It's just a totally different football environment that he's going into. But like I said, I think it'll help him in some ways. He'll kind of have plenty of the ball at his feet in his own half the pitch. Teams backing off him, so he's going to have to make decisions now, Jared, in terms of passing forward and the quality of his passing back to front. Can he step into midfield play? He can have more touches on the ball and more opportunity maybe to showcase that side of his game, Shane, which he hasn't had at maybe Brighton during his time. He's been defending on the edge of his box, kind of playing counter-attacking football. Not so much last year under Potter. It was a different style of play. But prior to that, he's been shown his talents in terms of ability to defend the penalty box, tackles, winning headers, etc., that type of thing. And Shane's very strong when he's on the edge of his box in terms of defending the penalty box. But it's going to be a slightly different test. He's not going to be tested as much defensively at Celtic in those respects, but he will have the opportunity to maybe to showcase that side of his game potential that we haven't seen in a Brighton jersey. Maybe his footballing strength. Some people are maybe questioning that at the moment.
It's going to be swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he's aware of that as well. Duffy is well aware of the questions that are there. He came into the press conference after the game against Finland last Sunday and brought it up off his own steam several times of people keep saying, I can't play this style of football. I guess the worry is that he's given a false sense of security, Kenny, in Scotland, that, as you say, he has more of the ball, but he's got all the time in the world to do something with it that may not be there in international football. Or is international football that fast? Like, is international football a big step up? Like, you're talking about going up against Hernan Crespo. You don't see too many strikers, say, from Slovakia that we're going to be playing against, or from Wales that we're going to be playing against, at Ireland's level at the moment, that are at quite that level.
Yeah, but the basic fundamentals apply. I'm not, don't get overly carried away with in terms of Shane's football and ability. So that's kind of not so much a huge issue for me. The last two games for Ireland for me was just in terms of just Shane's relationship with the fullback with Matt. And also in terms of the defensive screen in front of him, I thought he was at times actually left a little bit isolated. So I'd have issue just in terms potentially the starting position, the whole defensive line, to be honest with you, in terms of how high up the pitch they were, and just distances really, technical points really, distances between him and Matt, and just decision making, when to squeeze, when to drop into the space, and also a bit of protection. I think at times you can get a bit more protection from the midfielders in front as well. So that was me. For me, was a small concern the last two games for Ireland. I wouldn't be like panic stations in terms all of a sudden Shane Duffy can't play international football. Shane's an experienced player and he'll be sitting down with the coaching staff for Ireland next time around. They'll be sitting down with all the defenders saying, right, we can't get exposed like we were before. Matt, whoever it is, Seamus, Coleman, got to make sure you narrow up here. We're not too high up the pitch. Don't leave ourselves open to that ball in behind. James McCarthy, get across, give that little bit of protection as well, nice and compact defensively. They're the answers. The answer isn't like, oh, Shane Duffy's got to liven up. The answers come from a few different areas. It's kind of it's a group thing. It's the whole collective that has to improve. It's not just a case of Shane Duffy's got to defend better.
Yeah. No, 100%. Let's actually ask that question about who he's going to be playing with and the situation at Spurs, because we can talk about Spurs and Everton, and we can also talk about the context of that right-back battle. There's something terribly comforting in the cosy familiarity of Mourinho's long-standing tradition of blaming everyone but himself for his team's failings, says Julian Salmon on Twitter this morning. Straight after the game, it's the back page of all the papers. Mourinho's essentially calling his own team lazy. Said that Matt Doherty wasn't fit just yet because of the off-season. Nothing to do with him. Nothing to do with him, basically.
Yeah, no, I don't think you have to take a certain amount of responsibility in terms of the physical condition of your players. That's important. We saw that kind of post lockdown in terms of the teams who had actually managed themselves better. Physical conditioning was better. Actually had an advantage in those that remaining kind of 6 weeks of the season. Yeah, probably Southampton are probably a good example of that standout team. I thought they look sharp. I don't know what work they've been doing behind the scenes, but they had an edge on other teams. And pre-season's the same. People say you don't peak until maybe a month, 6 weeks into the season. That's fair enough. I didn't see the game yesterday, to be honest. I was working on the early one. I didn't get home for the second. But you've got to be careful as a manager. You really do. In terms you point the finger at your players. The players will suck it up to a point if it's warranted and if it's kind of justified. You never like hearing a full stop, Ger, to be honest with you. Even if it is justified, you don't like to hear it from your manager, particularly publicly, kind of calling out your players. But you'll kind of suck it up maybe once or twice, but can't be happening too often, because then players get a sense of, hold on, this fella's deflecting, and that's when the whole trust breaks down between and respect between players and a manager. And once that happens, it's very difficult to get it back. So Mourinho's going to be a little bit careful in terms of how he approaches this.
You did the game, Nathan. How bad were Spurs?
Oh, very, very poor. Just way off the pace. Like, best Everton performance I've seen in quite a while, but they looked at a different level, whether that was fitness or whether it was desire. But there was a total different intensity, particularly around the middle of midfield, where you would have thought Harry Winks and Højbjerg would give them a little bit of something, but they were totally dominated by the three. And Harry Kane barely got a touch of the ball. Like, Dele Alli is taken off at half time. Seamus Coleman, a Heung-min Son in his pocket. Lucas Moura barely involved. So it was hard to pick a Spurs player who actually played well. They have had difficulties in pre-season, though. Like, we touched on Matt Doherty. He's on holidays for 3 weeks. He goes straight into Ireland camp. He plays 2 matches. He's back. He probably doesn't train with Spurs for the first time till Wednesday. Now, whether that means he can't be at peak physical condition and Jose Mourinho is blaming the player for that, or just admitting that this is going to be an issue for the first few weeks, I guess that's going to play out. But there's definitely an issue in terms of fitness and attitude. But there's also, I think, for Spurs, I don't know what you feel about this, Kenny, in terms of just the quality of players they have. If you look at where they were 3-4 seasons ago, like Danny Rose 3-4 seasons ago, major step up from where Ben Davies is now. Jan Vertonghen, a big step up on Eric Dyer. Their midfield, they had the quality of somebody like Moussa Dembele in there. They don't have that anymore. Like, and Dele Alli has stalled massively over the past couple of years. And Harry Kane, for a variety of reasons, injuries and the quality of players behind them, just isn't scored anywhere near as many goals. So the Spurs are in a bit of a state right now.
Yeah, I think you're right in terms of recruitment is an issue for them, has been for some time. And the problem isn't, you're talking about Matt in the right back position, no problem with that. A bit of physical fitness, match sharpness will serve him very well. I look at Spurs across the top of the pitch and I haven't got any particular worries. Kane, Son, Moura, Lamela, Lo Celso. Bergwijn, I think, was a very good boy actually in the middle half of last season. I think he's going to be a very good player, money well spent. But the massive problem they have, and have had, possibly saying it for about a year or so now, central midfield. They haven't got anybody who can defend. They haven't got anybody with real kind of tenacity in there with a physical presence who can go make tackles and kind of dominate that area of the pitch. I'm not talking about in football in terms of dominate in possession of the ball. I'm talking about who can get around the pitch and make tackles and physically impose himself and have that real kind of defensive mindset. Now, they brought Højbjerg in. I scratched my head a little bit. Højbjerg's a decent enough player, but wouldn't come into that category for me. Alan's the one for me. I thought was a great boy by Ancelotti. I've seen him play at Napoli a lot. He's been out of the Napoli team, but not because he's been playing badly. It's just they have a dearth of talent in there at the moment at Napoli. Just couldn't get enough playing time. He's the type of player Spurs needed. He only cost an extra 4 or 5 million than what they paid for Højbjerg. The very experienced player, smart, wily operator. You know, just breaks up opposition attacks. It's disciplined, holds the centre of the pitch, gives protection to the back four. And the Spurs back four need a bit of protection. I mean, centre half pairing of Vertonghen and Dyer for me doesn't fill me with confidence. Vertonghen's best days are behind them. Dyer, I'm still yet to be convinced in terms of him as a centre half and a back forward in terms of mobility as well. So for me, the fundamental issues in terms of recruitment are centre midfield and at centre half. They still haven't resolved that. And Mourinho's been there long enough now to assess it. I think he knows it. He's brought Højbjerg in, but I'm just not convinced Højbjerg's good enough. Winks is a tidy footballer, a good little technician, but he can't defend. You can't progress as a club if you've got aspirations to challenge for Europe and Champions League. You can't do that with a midfield without a player in there who can actually knows how to defend. I mean, honestly,
Mourinho knows this too, right?
Yeah, and it's the way he actually likes to use traditional the Mourinho's teams, that central area of the pitch. You know what I mean? He locks down that central area of the pitch. Players in it, but by that I mean he puts players in there who understand how to defend that area of the pitch, who can break up opposition attacks, disrupt opposition teams, and don't allow opposition teams to dominate in that area of the pitch. Screen the back four, cut down those passing lanes for opposition teams, and just kind of almost suffocate teams. This Tottenham team just haven't got the players to do that. And if Højbjerg's the answer in central midfield, I'd really be worried. So I like what I'm seeing higher up the pitch. I think Matt's going to be a very good signing for them. But for me, they're short in key areas of the pitch, centre midfield in particular, and centre half. And I think we'll see more movement there. We'll have to in terms of players coming in. Is the boy? And who's this centre midfield they bought for massive money, 65 million? Ndombele, yeah. He's
got off the bench for Matt Doherty
Yeah,
yesterday.
it looks as he's over. His relationship's another one. His relationship's broken down with Mourinho.
He was brutal when he came on.
Yeah, but his attitude's gone. You can see, this is what I'm talking about, Mourinho. Once you lose that kind of trust element with your players, that's it. You can't get it back. No. And that happened in the middle of last season in the belly. You could see that in terms of the lads' body lines with public comments from Mourinho, maybe questioning his mentality and stuff and professionals, etc.
They don't seem to respond very well to this in Jose Mourinho's world. I don't know why he continues to do it.
Yeah, no, on occasion, but it's how the other players perceive it as well, Ger. If it's in the eyes of the other players, if it's not warranted in terms of the criticism, you call out one of your players and they feel as if, oh, that's unfair, that's one of my teammates. It's not just about losing that one player, it's about the rest of the team as well. They don't like to hear that as well, a team out being called out as well. So he's got to be very careful, Mourinho, really does. He's on a bit of a knife edge with the squad there. It's
like Tommy Tiernan coaching the under-12s with the truth will set you free. There's a bit too much truth from Jose Mourinho here for these Spurs players. Little pat in the back the odd time.
You were raving about Seamus Coleman's performance. Kenny hasn't seen it yet, and so just explain to anybody else who hasn't seen it this morning that how well he played, Nathan.
I don't think we should be surprised because Coleman will have been disgusted to have been dropped from the Ireland team. He'll sit out in front and do his press conference and do his duties, but the character he is, he will have wanted to have proven a point, particularly up against Matt Doherty yesterday. Defensively, did everything right from the start of the game. Heung-min Son broke free down the left-hand side, brings it in, cutting in from the end line. Coleman tracks him. You're waiting for the tackle to come in inside the area. Just bides his time, and just as Heung-min Son's about to pull the trigger to pull it back, Coleman times his tackle to perfection, ricochets off Heung-min Son, and he just kicked on from there. Last gasp tackles, powerful headers from set pieces, but it was more in an attacking sense. He got forward more than I've seen Seamus Coleman in the last 2 or 3 years. I think because of the quality they've added in midfield, he felt he could trust them a little bit more. But he must have made 7 or 8 breaks into the Spurs penalty area. Had a couple of shots from the edge of the area, like the ball's popping out where it goes up towards Calvert-Lewin. Spurs defender gets there, and suddenly it's Seamus Coleman appearing 25 yards out with a first-time volley. And he just looked full of energy. Again, maybe it is the fitness side of things. Maybe he had a very good pre-season, but yeah, as good as I've seen Seamus Coleman play in the last 2 or 3 years, and as good as Everton have played in the last 2 or 3 years, their supporters are going to be waking up this morning pretty happy with life. They're going to be wandering to go out Stanley Park, bollock naked. We're back, baby. We're back. But there have been too many false dawns for Everton over the last few years to get overly excited after one match. But like Kenny touched on Alan and what he has in the middle of midfield, and just that class and control and energy to get around. Decore has a lot of that as well. And then James Rodriguez. Okay, it's day one. Even Carlo Ancelotti was trying to calm everybody down. Not sure he kept the ball away. Like time and time again, lovely little touch, take him away from a midfielder and floats this crossfield ball to Richarlison, inch perfect. So there's a lot to like about this Everton side after one game against a pretty terrible Spurs. But Coleman was back.
Yeah. Well, I just say in terms of Everton, you see the difference those signings in central midfield have made. Alan and Decore, high energy, physically aggressive, box to box. You know, can compete, but also get forward. Those third man runs are really energised that midfield area. 2 key signings, and they haven't paid fortunes for these players. This is exactly what Tottenham need, and they've gone and signed Højbjerg for 15 million. That's the kind of contrast that I'm talking about. I hear Nathan talking about Seamus Coleman, but to be honest with you, I probably don't even I don't need to see the game. I mean, I know what type of player Seamus is, so that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. I've loved Seamus' evolution as a player since he came over to England. Came over really as attack-minded, kind of full-back. David Moyes actually played him right side midfield, I think, initially, because he understood the defensive side to his game. He really needed to improve and develop, but he actually did that. And over the years, I've really watched him improve as a defender, 1v1 situations, understanding the game as a right-back, positional self, distance to your full-back, centre, you know, working in tandem with your wide player. And you've seen him improve and develop into really kind of outstanding. I'd say probably for me, the best in the world. I said it maybe 3 or 4 years, as good as anything in terms of in and out possession. So the conversation of late with Matt Doherty has been a very interesting one. We're lucky really to have players of this quality competing for the one spot we believe at the moment. So Stephen, it looks as if he's given Matt the jersey, and I can understand that. Matt is so productive in the opposition half the pitch. He's absolutely phenomenal in terms of what he's been doing at Wolves for the past couple of years. And in terms of Stephen's style of play, how he's looking to play, it didn't surprise me whatsoever Matt has got the jersey. But I've never written off Seamus, and I've always felt potentially if Ireland were going into a game, and this is the Slovakia game, and I said it prior to the last 2 Ireland games, if we needed that type of game demanded a player at full-back, we need to play our best defender at right-back in that particular game to really kind of narrow up and shore up that side of the pitch. For whatever reason, one-off game against Slovakia, we need to win to get to a final potential against Bosnia or Northern Ireland. I need my best. You looked at the opposition, Slovakia, they got a little bit of talent over there. Just need to lock down that area of the pitch. Who am I going to play? I think there is an argument, and this is before the last 2 games, that maybe Seamus plays in that game. That's not to say Matt Doherty can't defend. Of course he can. But Seamus, for me, has really developed that side of his game in terms of narrowing up to his centre-half, talk and communication. Seamus is a talker. I don't know if Seamus personally can see it, but can sit on the pitch. He's always in the ear of the centre-half. And that's what you need as a centre-half. You need a full-back who's like, he's almost a parrot. You need a parrot playing alongside you on your shoulder, constantly squawking into your ear, giving you information. Man, drop off, squeeze, man on your shoulder, drop in, I'm with you.
Is there no way we can play these 2 players together?
Not in a 4-3-3 we can't, unless you're going to make an argument for one of them popping in at left back, which isn't going to happen. No, you've got to play 3-4-3, 3-5-2.
None of them can play in the 3 in midfield?
No.
What about the 3 up top? What about playing Matt Doherty right up top?
No, we did it. We had a look at Gibraltar like under making it just didn't work. It's a totally different position.
But Gibraltar is bad evidence.
Well, if you can impact the game against a team like Gibraltar, no disrespect to them.
The whole team was crap that night.
It's not just that. It's what's required of it. It's a totally different position you're operating. Your starting position 20 yards higher up the pitch, receiving the ball. You're on the half turn with your back to goal, as opposed to constantly receiving it a little bit deeper, receiving the ball and travelling up the pitch with the ball. You have to play in more congested areas high up the pitch. It's a far more demanding, far more difficult role than an orthodox wing back or an orthodox full back position. I'm not saying they can't do it. I mean, they're good enough to do a job there. But in terms of actually excel in that area of the pitch, I don't think you're being fair to either player.
Callum Robinson or Callum O'Dowd is the question, and you don't think.
Well, I think there's an argument for it if you want to lock down that area. It depends what you're looking for. If you're playing against a team, you're just saying, I want to play my 2 best defenders there and absolutely lock down that side of the pitch. Nobody can get through us. Well, I think there's an argument there for potentially like Matt and Seamus there. But I think kind of
be a negative thing though, as opposed to there's no way it could be a positive having.
I don't see it long term. For me, the argument going into the Slovakia game is how do you want to play? Do you still want to get your fullbacks higher? Are you going to demand of your fullbacks the higher starting position and get higher up the pitch? And ask your centre halves to play a little bit more 1v1 at times on the counter, to kind of open yourself up a little bit more. I still think the answer for Matt, it's not to say, I'm sure Stephen will sit down with the coaching staff with Matt next summer and say, look, Matt, we're going to be a little bit more careful in terms of how we're defending. We're just really going to have to narrow up. You're going to be aware of that run off Shane's shoulder. Might say to the whole defensive line, we're all going to drop 10 yards, defend a little bit deeper. Like I said, the whole collective answer. So, but I think it's an interesting discussion, and it's not a put down for anyone, or certainly not Matt or Seamus. It's the fact that we've got 2 outstanding players here, and we're lucky to have them. But there's small differences in terms of their makeup as footballers, their strengths and weaknesses. And it's a case of this Slovakia game I see as a standalone. I don't see this as another game in terms of the development of the squad. We're moving forward. For me, this almost separates itself, this Slovakia game. We've got to win it. It's a one-off game, 90 minutes, go over there, get the job done, keep a clean sheet. Clean sheet, we win that game and win a playoff final. It's as simple as that. So what team, for me, I'd actually roll it back to me. I'd say, what team can we put on the pitch against Slovakia that guarantees a clean sheet, that we have the most confidence in, that can actually suffocate the life out of Slovakia, limit their opportunities and goal, keep a clean sheet, and we'll go and score at the other end, and we'll be in the playoff final.
Sounds pretty good.
Go on.
What
What about the guy who's the best defender in the world right now then, Virgil van Dijk. Confident, arrogant? Did he veer into cockiness at the weekend with his performance against Leeds?
I veers into cockiness every week, every game he plays.
He's got a lot to be cocky about.
Well, I might have said this last year. The only thing I worry about him is that kind of God complex. I said it occasionally. That's what I'm talking about. That supreme arrogance on the football pitch, which is one of his strengths. Don't get me wrong.
It's very Dutch.
That presence. Yeah. It's that presence that he has. Like he's such a good player, and he knows it, which is no bad thing. That kind of self-confidence exudes confidence. But at times, if you just allow it to get just out of hand a little bit, then we saw what we saw at the weekend. The ball over the top, that kind of, it was like, it wasn't a hook clearance. He was over the shoulder. That technique to try and, just took that ball over Bamford into...
It was a bit like Dennis Bergkamp against Argentina in the World Cup. It was almost like he was trying to take it down a bit, but it's like...
But the level of difficulty, and if that was me in that situation, I'm just literally trying to kick it over my shoulder. I'm thinking, can I even make contact with this ball? I'm probably going to let that ball bounce, but to actually take it on the volley...
it out for a corner.
Yeah, by and large, you're just looking to make good contact and put it out for a throw-in. Just make good contact. It's not easy. Yeah, he's trying to take with the outside of his right foot, almost a reverse sweep over Bamford. But this is what I'm talking about. That very occasionally this kind of creeps into his game. But it wasn't just kind of Van Dijk. The Liverpool kind of defensive line was a little bit kind of not shambolic, but it's been there for a long time. We probably spoke about it last year. Every week they're winning Liverpool, and I'm saying, I just think defensively, that high line, the decision making not dropping off. Just got to be a little bit careful with that. I almost seem to be saying it every month, but Liverpool are winning games, so people are laughing at you thinking, what are you talking about?
They're still winning games, they're getting away with it. But there was, which goal? Was it Leeds' first goal or Leeds' second goal where the ball went to the brilliant crossfield?
Harrison. Yeah, so this is what I'm talking about. So Calvin Davis, I think, receives the ball off the two centre-halves in space. Liverpool don't get that pressure on him high. Torrens has a touch, his head is up now, no pressure. And the Liverpool back for like 2 yards inside their own half. They're that high up the pitch. And I actually think Alexander-Arnold made the good decision. He actually dropped off early into the space. Because as a full-back, I'm in trouble. There's no pressure on the ball. 30 yards of space in behind me. I've got to drop in here. And it's exactly what he did. The problem was Gomez and the rest of the defensive line didn't drop with him. So when Harrison took that touch on his inside and took him on the inside, Joe Gomez should have been walking across there. And if not winning the tackle, at least just planting his body there and showing him across the pitch and buying a bit of time. But Gomez was sprinting back because he hadn't made the decision to drop early enough. He's sprinting back now, Ger. So when Harrison touches that ball on his inside and goes past him, he's out of the game because he's sprinting a full pelt now. He can't put the brakes on. So this is what I'm talking about. I think Liverpool have to. I've been saying this for a long time. I mean, I think it's actually quite a simple thing to resolve. But clearly, they don't see it that way, the managers and the coaches. They can't see it. They must be happy to take that. It's a calculated risk, like everything in a football pitch. It's a calculated risk that you take.
The trade-off.
Risk and reward.
Yeah.
But Leeds exploited it. Leeds had a look at that and thought, we're going to get runners going in there. We're going to put the ball in there early in behind, which a lot of teams don't do with Liverpool. Played in front, played sideways. They went, no, the space there, we're going to put it in there and we're going to get runners going in there. And Liverpool looked very average across that defensive line, looked very exposed.
It's going to make for an exciting season. The Arsenal fans think that Mikel Arteta is a genius. Small sample size, already won a trophy, wins the first game of the season. The signings look good. Can he give the Arsenal fans something to cheer about?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I'm all in. I mean, I don't know about genius, to be honest with you. He's organised the team, he's coached the team, and that's what they've been crying out for a couple of years. Good quality coaching.
At Arsenal, that counts as a genius.
Possibly so, but that's what they've got now. I like the look of them, I like the shape of the team. I think they're in balance. I think they can improve the team. Actually, the personnel that they have probably need maybe a bit of strength, central midfield area. I think potentially maybe in terms of more acquisitions, but the attitude of the players' mentality is absolutely fantastic. I'd reserve judgment on the new players. Obviously, Gabriel come in at a decent debut. I temper it a little bit in terms of the quality of the opposition they're up against. Fulham was really disappointed at them. Made it very easy for Arsenal. But Arsenal are in a good place. Some outstanding young talent there. Saka didn't even start. Martinelli, people have stopped talking about, probably the best of the lot. He's going to have to come back in. He's a number 9. He can play across the line. Still feels there's a potential. Lacazette, I have a bit of a feeling Lacazette could end up going out the door. Aubameyang down the centre because you've got such talent. Pepe, Saka, Martinelli still got to come. He's got to make a pathway for these players to play. So yeah, no, they're in a great place, Arsenal. Yeah, I wouldn't temper that excitement, but still, I don't think it's quite perfect yet. I think, like I said, that central midfield area is one. I think potentially can they get another one in? Sabalah's a tidy little player, but again, I'll probably go back to again. Maybe it's just me, is it? That central midfield area in terms of that kind of real kind of physicality, physical presence. Xhaka doesn't give you that lovely left foot, but just can't. He's not a mover. He's not moving and a groover in that area of the pitch. El Nelly's not too bad, actually. He's come from nowhere, come back into nowhere. He's come from. It's amazing, really. But Thomas Partey, they were linked to it. That type of player. Box, that decorated box to box, absolute, machine in terms of leg, in terms of leg speed, that type of thing, tackle, competitiveness. That type of player in there, I think, would complement those other players. But no, they're in a great place.
That's much closer than they have been in a number of years to actually being competitive.